From Navy diver to nationwide nightmare, the hidden life of a serial rapist. The room was silent when investigators made the announcement, the kind of silence that feels like a punch. People leaned forward, waiting for the next word. Then the bomb dropped. A former U.S. Navy diver, dead for almost 30 years, had just been identified as a serial rapist who attacked women across the United States for at least 15 years. The name was Sean Patrick McNulty. To most people, it meant nothing. But to the investigators and to the victims who had waited decades for answers, it meant everything. For years, detectives had worked through old sexual assault kits, boxes that had sat forgotten in storage rooms, closets, and police evidence lockers. Many were older than the officers who now handled them. Inside those boxes were stories of women who had been attacked in their own homes, dragged into terror, and left with no face and no name to blame. When the DNA was finally tested and uploaded into a national system, something shocking happened. Matches began popping up in different states: California, Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Different victims, different years, different crime scenes. But the same man. Officers started piecing the cases together. Each woman had reported the same terrifying pattern: a man breaking into the house at night, moving silently, attacking fast, then disappearing. No fingerprints, no identity, nothing left behind except fear. For one victim, it had been more than 40 years. She had spent almost her entire adult life wondering who had shattered her safety. Another woman had filed her report back in the 1980s.
Even with the DNA match, even with the truth in their hands, there were signs that more cases from other states were still waiting to be uncovered. Files lost, evidence forgotten, pain buried for decades. And as investigators dug deeper into McNulty's past, one disturbing clue appeared in his records. A clue suggesting his crimes might have started earlier and might not have stopped where they thought. Now the big question hung in the air. If this man operated for 15 years without being caught, how many more victims were still out there, waiting for answers? The search had only just begun. The deeper investigators dug into Sean Patrick McNulty's past, the more unsettling the picture became. What they found next didn't just shock them, it forced them to ask if his crimes went back even farther than anyone realized. It started with a simple discovery: old Navy travel logs. Pages yellowed with age, ink fading, dates that no longer meant anything to most people. But to detectives, the pattern was unmistakable. Each time McNulty was transferred to a new base or sent on temporary duty, reports of home invasions and sexual assaults appeared in nearby towns, sometimes within days, sometimes within weeks. Different states, different victims, the same violent method. It was like finding footprints where no one expected to see them. One investigator, a man with more than 20 years of experience, said he felt a chill he couldn't shake. He described it as watching a ghost leave clues behind. Because McNulty wasn't alive to question, he wasn't alive to confront, and he wasn't alive to explain why he kept attacking women across America without fear of being caught. Then, the interviews began. Women who had stayed silent for decades suddenly felt brave enough to speak. One survivor said she had buried the memory so deep she thought she would never talk about it again. But hearing the name of her attacker gave her the strength to open up. "She stole my fear," she said, softly. "Now, I want to steal back my voice." Investigators took her statement, and then another, and another. Some women whispered through tears, others spoke with anger and strength. All of them described the same thing: a man who moved quietly, struck suddenly, and left nothing behind except trauma. Then something unexpected surfaced. A retired officer from a Midwestern police department came forward with an old report, a case from the early 1980s involving a break-in, a masked man, and a terrified victim who had given details matching McNulty's pattern. The report had been misfiled and lost for more than 30 years.
But now, it was found. And it wasn't the only one. Detectives realized they were dealing with something bigger, a predator who had slipped through cracks, moved through states undetected, and carried out attacks that were never connected. But the hardest blow came next. While reviewing McNulty's service record, investigators uncovered a quiet disciplinary note, a behavior concern filed by a superior officer. No details, no follow-up, just a warning sign that something was wrong. It raised a terrifying question. Did the Navy overlook signs that could have stopped him decades earlier? As reporters pressed for answers and victims waited for closure, investigators were racing against time, not to catch McNulty, but to uncover the full truth he left behind. And just when they thought they understood the scale of his crimes, a new file surfaced from yet another state, one no one expected, with evidence that could change everything they thought they knew about how far McNulty's attacks really stretched. The discovery left investigators frozen, because if this new file was linked to him, it meant his timeline didn't start when they thought. It started earlier, much earlier. The new file came from a state that had never been part of the investigation, Florida. Investigators stared at the documents in disbelief. The case was old, older than any of the confirmed assaults connected to McNulty. The victim had been a young woman attacked in her apartment near a naval training area in the early 1980s. The report described a masked intruder who moved with confidence, struck fast, and vanished without leaving a trace. The description matched McNulty's method almost perfectly. But what made this file different was a detail no one had seen before. The attacker spoke only once during the attack, one sentence, one short command, and the victim remembered the voice clearly. Calm, controlled, and spoken with the exact same regional accent McNulty had been known for. The detective reviewing the case felt a sinking feeling. This meant McNulty might have started even earlier than anyone had guessed, and that his 15-year crime spree could actually have been closer to 20 years, maybe more. The investigation team met late into the night, studying timelines, maps, and service records. They connected Navy trainings, ship deployments, and leave dates. The pattern tightened. Wherever McNulty traveled, reports of home invasions or assaults seemed to appear like dark shadows behind him.
It became painfully clear. He had been hiding in plain sight. A decorated Navy diver by day, a violent predator by night. And because he kept moving, kept changing states, and kept leaving no fingerprints, no one ever connected the dots until it was too late. But as frightening as the new discoveries were, something powerful grew out of the investigation. Survivors from across the country, women who had once felt alone and forgotten, began connecting with each other. They shared their stories, their memories, and their pain. And slowly, they realized they weren't isolated victims of random attacks. They were part of a larger truth finally coming into the light. Some cried when they learned the attacker was dead, not because they wanted revenge, but because they wished they could have seen him answer for what he did. Others felt relief. After decades of carrying fear, they finally had a name, and a reason why their lives had been shattered. Investigators too felt the weight. They couldn't arrest McNulty. They couldn't put him on trial, but they could give the survivors something he never did: answers, closure, and the truth. In the final press briefing, the lead detective looked out at the cameras and said the words that would close the case forever. We may never know the full number of victims, but today, they are no longer unheard. Today, they are no longer alone. And just like that, the story of a man who hid in the shadows for decades finally ended, not with his capture, but with the strength of the survivors whose voices rose above everything he tried to silence.